I've been wrestling since I was 18 years old. And within the first 5 months of my wrestling career, I'd already had 3 concussions. And for years after that, I would get a concussion here and there, or here or there. And then it gets to the point when you've been wrestling for 16 years that adds up to a lot of concussions. And it gets to a point where they tell you that you can't wrestle anymore. And for a long time, I fought that because I have loved this in a way that I have never loved anything else.
What's going on, good people? This is the common man, Nate Lewis, and today we're here with a common take on the WWE for today, Thursday, February 11th. Been a while since I talked to you guys. A lot of things going on. Today, there's just a ton of news to get to, but as you just heard the sound, the biggest story of the week is the retirement of Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan, to the WWE Universe. Big story coming out. We all know that Daniel has been suffering from concussion-like syndromes since a little bit after WrestleMania this past year. He's been on the shelf, and for those keeping up with the story, WWE's personal doctor, Dr. Maroon, has been unwilling to clear Daniel Bryan to return back to the ring. And this has speculated a lot of things regarding what Daniel Bryan's future would be with the company, whether it just be time just needed to go by before him to get cleared. As we got towards the end of 2015, there were even suggestions that Daniel, if he could not get cleared, would seek to get out of his contract with WWE and pursue wrestling for a Ring of Honor or a New Japan. That all changed. For those who have not really followed the story as closely, Dave Meltzer of Wrestling Observer was in town for the big, I think it was 3 nights of UFC events back in December. And during that time, he was able to take a trip to, I'm pretty sure it was I don't want to call it a lab, but there was a facility that was really focusing in on concussions and taking a look at the brain. And Mr. Meltzer was able to kind of see what all they do there, kind of, what's the instruments they use, what can they test for. And back around that time, Daniel Bryan also went to this facility to get I guess this will be documented, his 4th different doctor. He obviously went to a doctor in Phoenix where he received the all clear. The WWE doctor, Dr. Maroon, did not clear him to return. Daniel Bryan then went to UCLA in their facility, and after a battery of tests, they cleared him as well. So this, the latest would be the at least the 4th major doctor that Mr. Bryan saw, and those results came back, I believe it was the 29th of January, somewhere around that time frame. And while we're not exactly clear on what the diagnosis was, what was found by this battery of tests, but it was apparently enough that a guy who's been in this business well over 16 years at this point. A guy that, as you heard in the clip, loves this business more than anything else, decided to put that on the back burner and be more concerned of his health. So Daniel Bryan comes out last Monday and announces his retirement to the WWE Universe. Actually, he sent out a tweet early in the day. Obviously, it's been known for the last couple of days prior to that Daniel would be on the show. He took to his Twitter earlier in the day and mentioned that it would be an announcement of his retirement. Now, I'm not going to be one of those people that you'll find online now that's going to tell you, I've been a Daniel Bryan fan since he first started, things like that. And there are those fans out there. Ring of Honor at the time when Daniel Bryan was in the company was a highly talked about program and still is among the hardcore wrestling base. Now, while I did not follow Bryan Danielson at that time, the American Dragon, I did see a couple of his matches years ago. There was a DVD. I can't remember where I purchased it from. I purchased it from some website, and it featured a match between Bryan Danielson and AJ Styles, which was my first exposure to Daniel Bryan. And at the time, I was a very big AJ Styles mark and still very much am. I'm excited to see him in the WWE finally after all these years. So I saw this AJ Styles match. I see him kind of wrestling this, I don't want to call him small, but he was, this little small, kind of pasty, bland looking guy who, clearly within the first few minutes of the match, you can see this guy was very technically sound and kind of he had something to him. The match itself was really good. It wasn't until a couple years later that I got to see some of his matches with Tyler Black and with Samoa Joe. And right before he got signed with WWE, I got some links to some of his other matches and really got to enjoy those. So I was excited when Danielson joined WWE. Obviously, they changed his name. Bryan Danielson, I guess, was just too long a name. So we got the name changed to Daniel Bryan. And I thought about this before I started recording, if I was going to be one of those guys that now calls him Bryan Danielson throughout this podcast, or if I was going to stick with Daniel Bryan. And I couldn't figure it out. So you might hear me bouncing back and forth between the two. At this point, I've been calling him Daniel Bryan longer than Bryan Danielson. So I think by default, I kind of switched to that. But you'll also hear me bounce around between Daniel Bryan. Anyway, that's Bryan Danielson. That's neither here nor there. I've been asked the last few days by people that I know and people who listen to this podcast. So, Nate, when are you going to do this podcast? Which, like I said, my work schedule's been hectic, but to be quite honest, it's a podcast I did not want to do. I've been, I gave you the story of how I got to follow the man of Bryan Danielson, and since this time in the WWE, I've always been a fan of himself and CM Punk, who, they were the little guys, they were the indie guys that came to WWE, and they weren't big enough, they didn't have the physique, but these guys knew how to work. And so when Daniel Bryan started with WWE and they put him on the NXT show, it was clear quite early on. Like I don't remember his first full match he had on WWE television, and I could easily go look that up. But I remember seeing the first match and just going, "Man, this guy can move. He's got charisma. He knows what he's doing. This guy could be a good hand in here in the WWE." They'll just never put him in any position possible, though, to be a star with this company. And obviously, at that, or sometime after that, when the Nexus group began, we had the first real angle where they destroyed the ring. They took out a bunch of guys, and lo and behold, Daniel Bryan's using I think he used a tie to choke out I believe it was the ringside announcer, and was fired. And this caused the backlash. not just with the hardcore, well, mostly with the hardcores, but you had fans throughout. They got to know him on television. They liked the guy, especially they're really gonna like WWE fans are really like anybody who is opposed to the Miz. So that got him a little bit of a ground-swelling support as well. But they brought him back for SummerSlam that year, I believe. And ever since then, he's gone through the highs and the lows. And while I had been a fan of him, while I thought I was one of those people championing for them to give him a chance, I believe, I'm trying to think here, the first time I really took notice and said, this guy can really, definitely, truly be something, was obviously when they paired him with AJ Lee. And to AJ Lee's credit, despite what some people may think of her as a performer when others say how great she was and they want to downplay her, AJ played a very important role in not only Daniel Bryan's career, but also Dolph Ziggler's career. So in that sense and on that note, she deserves a lot of credit. That act with Daniel playing the overzealous and somewhat kind of insecure heel at the time and getting AJ Lee to babyface sympathy, I thought was very well done. And it eventually led to him winning his first championship, the World Heavyweight Championship at the time. And I mean, then we started getting what is universally known as it's got to be the most exciting chant you can do in WWE since the what chant, the yes chant. And when he first would start coming to the ring, it would just violently throw his hands in the air and just chant yes on the way to the ring. Obviously, being an MMA fan, the first thing I thought is, wow, he totally just ripped off Diego Sanchez. But it caught on. Even with him being a heel, the fans took notice to the chant. They love to kind of use it to mock him as time went on. And, he kind of made some changes to the chant itself so it was more fan accepted. And this led to the angle going into Mania with his match with Sheamus, which was the 18-second loss of his title. They had been building that matchup for several weeks, obviously, going into Mania, and I was really excited for the match. And I think that's the second year. I believe the first year they teased that match, and it was put on the pre-show, which pissed me off because WrestleMania is the one kind of pay-per-view where myself, my wife, my son, and my daughter, we all kind of sit and we watch that one. And I was really excited for that match. And, the pay-per-view starts, the matches are going, and what's this Daniel Bryan and Sheamus match happening? And we get all the way to the main event to only find out that that match took place on the pre-show. So I was upset about that. And then the next year you follow it up with the 18-second loss thing, and it was absolutely ridiculous. But as time went on, the yes chant, just his work rate, his sympathy that you garner for him, not even just when he was a babyface, even when he was a heel, he really captured the WWE universe. He really captured mainstream. I mean, that yes chant, everybody remembers the Michigan, I believe it was the Michigan game where the whole stadium is doing the yes chants. You had the cheerleader videos doing the yes chants. And all that groundswell of support, all that mainstream exposure, and we were heading into the Royal Rumble in 2014. And he had just joined the Wyatt family. And I believe they did the angle that night where he left the Wyatt clan, or it was shortly before that, but I believe it was shortly before that. And we had their match at the Royal Rumble, and that was the year WWE thought that the big money draw would be Randy Orton versus Batista at WrestleMania. And the fans at the Royal Rumble were not having it. Once that last person came out, which I believe was Rey Mysterio, was number 30 that year, and there was no Daniel Bryan in that match, that place let you know they wanted to see Daniel Bryan. And it was one of those times, one of those events where I was just like, as a fan sitting at home, kind of rooting for this guy that I've gotten to know. I've gotten to do gotten to go back and watch his matches, kind of got to like his personality, not just through what you see on WWE television, but what you hear from him in other interviews, what you read about the guy, the things where he was kind of not in character. Daniel Bryan is a really likable person. And I'm sitting at home, I'm watching the crowd completely. They're chanting for Daniel Bryan. They're doing the yes chants. Now, it brought a smile to my heart that this guy he's the guy that everybody wants. And the WWE Universe took over. They let their voices be heard. And this little small guy who I saw wrestle AJ Styles years ago on this really shitty wrestling ring covered in, I believe it was duct tape. And there was maybe 20 people watching this really good match. And to see him get to the heights where he's challenging Triple H at WrestleMania for a chance to be in the world title match, that was something that clung to me, and I was pulling for this guy. And he goes to Mania, gets it done in New Orleans. Just a beautiful, beautiful spectacle. Could not be happier for the guy. And you don't want to say that's the peak of his career. There's been so many things he's accomplished and so many things he's done, but we can call it the pinnacle. The fact that the guy that this company had no plans for, the fact that this is a guy who, I don't want to say they held him back, but they held him back. They put him in positions where he should not have succeeded as well as he did. He was over to such a degree, and he was over, probably the most over guy at the time, aside from CM Punk, and they still wouldn't put the title on the guy. They still wouldn't run with the guy. They still wouldn't see him as the main draw. Even with Cena selling as much merchandise as he does, Cena's Cena. He's going to do that. But Daniel Bryan was your hottest babyface, and they refused to run with the guy. And the fans said, no. This is our guy. This is our guy. We want our guy to be the guy, and you won't let us have him. So we're going to put it in your face, make it happen. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And that WrestleMania 30 moment, along with how I felt about No Way Out, the No Way Out pay-per-view in 2004 when Eddie finally got the title as well. It was one of those times where I was just like, they're giving us something. They're giving it to us because we asked for it, we demanded it, and they're giving it to us. And much like the Rey Mysterio title run in 2006, immediately right after he wins the title, they throw him in with Kane, and it was just like, God damn it, you guys don't get it. You really don't get it. Just him having the title isn't enough. We want him to be the guy. And, unfortunately, the neck injury happened, and we kind of know what happens from here. But it was really hard for me to watch this speech on Monday. Just like I said, over the time, while I've not followed his entire career as it happened, I've gotten to go back and watch the man's career and know the passion he has for this business. He isn't one of those guys that's just, hey, I work here and I like wrestling, or even I work here and I love wrestling. Daniel Bryan watches New Japan, Chikara. He watches he loves pro wrestling. And for anyone who's ever done something that they love and can no longer do it, it's a sad thing. But I want to get off of that for a second, because when I heard, or even going back to the neck injury that happened to him in 2014, and there was talk that, hey, he's not healing right and things aren't going as well. The rehab is doing this, and will he ever come back? I'm of that school of thought that if you can't be healthy after you're done doing what you're doing to entertain me, that's not good. I want these guys, I want my heroes in the wrestling ring to be able to have a long-term life, and not only just have a long-term life, but to be healthy and enjoy the fruits of their labor of being out on the road close to 300 days a year, 52 weeks, 100 and something times on television. I see them every year. I want these guys to have a happy life. And even when that injury was going through, at the end of the day, I said, hey, if this guy never comes back, if he could find a way to be healthy, he's made a little bit of money. I hope things work out for him. And I've had that thought process now for going on. This would be almost going on 2 years. But he eventually makes the comeback. And the fans want to put the guy right back where he was before. We want to put him right back there in the title contention. And at that time, WWE was Roman Reigns is our guy. And I want to get into this part here because there's some of you listening now who want to associate me with being a Daniel Bryan fanboy or overzealous Daniel Bryan fan, and there's some backlash against people like that. Let me put this as blatantly as I can because it's my show and I can actually talk about it. I was one of those people who, when Daniel Bryan had to release the title, they had to take the title off the guy. I was unhappy with the angle going in. I was unhappy about the Kane thing. And I honestly, truly believe had he not got hurt at some point, he was going to drop that belt to Kane before SummerSlam, no matter how over the guy was. And it's one of those things that infuriated me. So when he's coming back, or when there's rumors of him coming back and it's right around Rumble time, the first thing I thought was, they're gonna probably bring him back in for the Rumble. This guy's gonna get a huge pop. It's gonna be a great thing for the company, and they're gonna use that as a way to push over whoever the hell they want to push over. And to me, that just pissed me off. This was a guy who, look at WWE television now. Who is a star on WWE TV? You got the Authority, Triple H, and Stephanie. They're clearly the stars of the show. And Roman Reigns, the guy they're trying to push as the star of the show. Brock Lesnar, who is, I said it earlier that John Cena is John Cena. Brock Lesnar is Brock Lesnar. And that's it. You have no stars on the show. And that's through the fault of a lot of things, whether it be booking or things like that. But here they are. They have a guy who's over. They have a guy who is a star. They have a guy who they didn't make, the fans made. So it's a true embrace of this guy, and they're bringing him in basically to help the bottom line as it is. But they're still not. I'm kind of something with the word I want to use. They're still not giving him the spot that the fans want him to have. And there was a match Daniel Bryan had going into that Royal Rumble in 2015 where I think he lost to Bray Wyatt. And I was watching that match live. I was posting in the Cult of Kayfabe Raw thread. And when his shoulders got pinned to the mat just a few weeks after his comeback and right before the Royal Rumble, I was pissed. Because the first thing I thought was they just use this guy to get Bray Wyatt over because he's over, and we're going right back to where we were before the fans had to take over your damn show and tell you this is the guy we want. And I caught all types of shit for that. Oh, it doesn't matter. They're trying to build to a storyline. He'll get the win at Rumble, or he'll get the pay. Doesn't matter. And I don't want to get too much on WWE's 50-50 booking and how it makes people look like shit. You can't build stars. I don't want to get into that right now, but just that comeback in and of itself, and for them to start it that way, I knew where this was going. And the fans rallied again. They wanted Daniel Bryan in that match, and they gave us the Fastlane pay-per-view with the shot at Mania on the line. And I had no problem with Roman Reigns going to Mania. At the time, I thought he wasn't ready. In hindsight, I still don't think he was ready. His match at Mania helped him get there, but it wasn't the time for him to be champion, and it probably wasn't the time for him to be in that spot, but that's neither here nor there. So, I mean, we take this another ride with him. We go through Mania. They gave him the Intercontinental title as kind of like I don't want to say it's a consolation prize, but it kind of was. But they were hoping that he could help do for the Intercontinental title what John Cena had done with the U.S. title. And I hope the plan was to book him as the champion as they book Cena as a champion. He goes out there, he has these incredible matches, and they put it over as a big deal. But we'll never know. The concussion happened with this match with Sheamus, and we're going from there. Speaking of which, a couple of things I've been hearing the last few days. Daniel Bryan did an interview with SportsCenter. I believe it was, I don't remember if it was night of Raw or the next night. And he kind of explained that during the last round of testing that he had, they discovered he had lesion areas in his brain, and he told the doctors there, but he's also been telling all his doctors that he's been suffering from seizures along with these concussions, and it's led people to. I mean, there's this video I saw maybe about 20 minutes before I started recording here of a match with him and Sheamus, and people are going, "Oh my God, he's having seizures there." I want to kill a couple of these things now. Daniel Bryan has gone on record and said he hasn't had any type of seizures in several years. I believe he said 4 years. So for people out there who are looking at videos and talking about these videos and, oh my God, you can see the signs here, you're not. So let's put an end to that. Also, kind of want to get this across. Also, Daniel Bryan's results from that last battery of tests wasn't indicative of, hey, you got to retire now, or hey, you need to retire, or your brain is totally fucked up and you should not be doing this. Daniel Bryan came to that decision on his own. He decided to weigh the pros and cons of what he learned at that time and decided that what he wanted to do in the next phase of his life was way more important to him than taking the risk of getting back in the ring. Which goes back immediately to what I said before. I want the guy to be happy, healthy, and have a full life. So at the end of the day, when I'm looking at this retirement speech on Raw, and they give him a chance to go out there and talk as much as he wants, and the guys come out on the ramp, and he's talking about gratitude and thanking the fans. It's sad. I got them feels in for a little bit. You know, the eyes started to well up. But at the end of the day, if he's doing what's best for him, his health and his future, I'm all aboard. I'm happy he's able to make that decision and hopefully not only aid to be able to live with it, but it's something that he absolutely wanted to do. It sucks to see a guy's career end so young, but I'm happy he's looking at his health and he's thinking of his health, and hopefully has a long, happy life. Now, something else that happened on Monday night, as a lot of you know, or as I've said on the show before, I'm a cord cutter. So I no longer get to watch Raw live, especially since I work in the evenings too. So I watch Raw, or some components of Raw, the following day on Hulu. So that's where I saw this Daniel Bryan speeches on Hulu. And at the end, when he's walking through the guys and he's heading to the back, I see Vince McMahon, who's on the ramp, and Vince is crying, and he's heading to the back after Daniel Bryan is kind of cleared from the camera shot. And I saw him go to kind of take a half step back towards the crowd area, and I saw a smile on his face, and he goes to then kind of take back off to the back, and I see Titus O'Neil standing there with a huge smile on his face as well. And I just thought, and my initial reaction was, Titus being Titus. Titus is kind of a jokester. He's a funster, and Titus is really loved by the company. And you can obviously tell that from not only the push he's got in the last few weeks, but the fact that he's the face of a lot of charitable things that the WWE does. So I actually thought it was kind of a cute moment. And I go to bed. I get up the next morning. I'm getting ready to go to work. I'm in the car, and the new Wrestling Observer Radio, or the Figure 4 Radio, pops up on my Downcast. And I go to read the description, and sure as shit, this man's been suspended for 90 days. I'm like, what the fuck Titus do? And as I listened to the show, Brian and Brian Alvarez and Mike Cipriani are talking, and they bring up that indeed the fact that Titus grabbed Vince McMahon's arm on the way of Vince going to the back was the final straw, and that WWE is wanting to set a professional locker room environment. And Titus did something with that was kind of goofy, and they want these guys to be professional. So that was the last straw, and they suspended him 90 days. And Titus will not be involved in WrestleMania. Now, my first reaction to this is, and that's actually still my reaction to this is some dumb shit. It truly is. I understand you want to have your guys be more professional in certain situations. And apparently this is an issue that's going on backstage and on the road and in the ring. But Titus O'Neil is a well-liked guy backstage. And if you want to punish him in some way for having him goof off like that, that's fine. You can do what you normally do with guys you're pissed off at. Go in there and have him get pinned by Adam Rose. But to actually take him off the biggest show of the year to set an example to the rest of the locker room is complete bullshit. And I guess it's something that's been in the works or something that needed to be done for a while. It's just a shitty way to go about it. And right before I came on to do the show, I saw that Mick Foley, send his support to Titus O'Neil. A fan asked Dave Bautista if he had any advice for Titus, and Dave flat out told him to ask for a release, which, look, Dave Bautista was in one of the biggest grossing movies a couple years ago in Guardians of the Galaxy. Dave's set. Don't listen to shit Dave got to tell you about how to stop making your bread and butter. Dave, at the end of the day, you ask for your release, Dave ain't sending you a check. Dave ain't about to pay that light bill. Dave ain't about to help you on no car note. Don't listen to Dave, Titus. You can listen. You can say you ain't gonna listen to me either. That's fine. But at the end of the day, don't listen to Dave telling you to ask for a release unless you know you got something lined up and you about to make that bread somewhere else. But going back to that, it was a 90-day suspension. Apparently, we've gotten word that they've reduced it now to 60 days, which would still take Titus off of WrestleMania. And you get in WWE, you get 30 days for popping for any type of performance enhancer or even for popping for marijuana usage. So even 60 days to me is completely ridiculous. Hopefully this gets settled and something can be done so we can get Titus, let the man be on Mania. He's a huge spokesperson for you. Look, he knows what he did was wrong. He even tweeted that he texted someone within the company and said, hey, I really messed up. Obviously, the guy's remorseful. Come on, cut the guy a break here. And other news, just to kind of follow up on the Finn Balor situation. Finn apparently sprained his ankle doing the coup de grace on Samoa Joe at a house show in Nashville. Nothing severe, just something that needs to be monitored, and he needs to get some rest. Obviously, well, there's no word additionally about a possible return or anything like that, but the word is he should be fine for his takeover match. Which, spoiler, he'll be taking on Samoa Joe at the takeover show. So I hate to spoil NXT for you. Maybe I should have gave you a little bit of a heads up on that, but yeah, it's whatever. Point is, though, Finn should be fine. I'm not sure if they're going to have him do any house show dates before that. Hopefully not. You should just let the guy rest. All your TVs are taped. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. And real quick, also, speaking of NXT, I've just been following the Twitter accounts of Patrick Clark, who was on the Tough Enough season, or this past Tough Enough season, along with Amanda, who was also on this past season, and you may have seen her on Total Divas. They made some debuts here recently at some NXT live events. So the reason why I'm even bringing this up is I'm a huge fan of Patrick Clark. I loved him on Tough Enough. I thought he was a guy who I'm not going to sit here and say Patrick looked like he could be a superstar. Patrick looked like a guy based off the show that could be on your main event or your superstars and kind of fit right in. And to me, that's kind of somebody you're looking for in Tough. You know, they want to say we're looking for the next possible world champion, the next this, the next that. Yeah, bullshit. I mean, there's a chance there's been a lot of Tough Enough success stories, but if you find a guy that can be in this business for longer than 3-4 years, then I think you've done the job well. And he looked like the guy right out the bat who I could see being in this business for a long time. So I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that he's with the company. I'm happy to see that he's in NXT and that he's working out there. So good luck to you, Patrick. As far as Amanda goes, Amanda was made very much to look like the heel on NXT. I'll say this: she's definitely not the character she portrayed on the show. I actually kind of like Amanda. I thought she needs a lot of work as far as in the ring. I thought her match with Alicia Fox was maybe one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. But she's learning, and her wrestling on live events in front of those small crowds is absolutely fine with me. She needs the experience working in front of a live crowd, and this is the way to go about it. Now, hopefully, she's not on NXT for a while until she gets a lot of ring experience, and NXT's kind of smart enough to do that, especially after the Eva Marie situation where they put her immediately to the main roster to have shitty matches. So hopefully she comes along okay. I know Sarah Lee's still at the Performance Center training, so is Josh. I'm not going to talk about Josh right now. So, yeah, hopefully they get Sarah Lee on the road here soon and bring these guys along slowly. They have a fan base, they have a following, and they're intrigued as well as I am to see what their futures will be. And, you know, just do this the right way. And with that, it's been like I said, it's been a hellacious week for me. Obviously, yesterday was supposed to be the day that I had some very special guest on to kind of do an interview, and things have just gone crazy for me this last week. So I want to apologize to anyone looking for those podcasts. I want to apologize to Penny and Cindy as well. We will have them on soon. And when I say soon, I mean actually real soon. So keep up for that. The NXT recap show, promise I'm going to keep my notes good to go. We might get that one Thursday morning when I get to post that one. And we'll go from there. I'll try to make, I'll try to do at least 3 shows a week. I'm going to try to stick to a schedule. I kind of have a way that I can do that. And hopefully I can stick with a consistent schedule for you guys. So, time for the plugs. However you guys are listening to the show, I want to thank you guys so much. The best way to find out how to listen to the shows is on the website, thecommonmanpodcast.weebly.com. That's thecommonmanpodcast.weebly.com. You'll find all the links, how to listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, YouTube. There's tons of different ways to listen to this audio. It's all available to you. Make sure you subscribe. Check out the website daily. I'm gonna get in the habit of updating that daily. I promise you guys. Whether it be with news, polls, questions, things like that, I'll get some content on there daily. But check out the site. Also on Facebook, the Common Man Podcast on Facebook. There's another source you can check out to see when the latest podcast episodes are coming up. Possible guests, you can leave suggestions there as well. All types of news can be shared. All types of news will be available on there as well. Check that out. And if you would like to support the show, if you like the show, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. When you're on the Facebook page, there's t-shirts available. There's hoodies. There's, I think, iPad covers. There's more shit coming soon. But if you like the show, you want to help support it, help improve the audio quality, which I'm trying to do as we speak. I was actually out shopping earlier for some more equipment. Pick up there and help support the show. Also, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback of my wife being on and reviewing The Martian. We might do some more stuff here down the road with my wife, reviewing other things. I'm going to get her on here soon. We'll talk some WWE as well. She's a very casual fan. So whenever I freak out about something that happens on Raw or NXT or in the WWE news, she's normally the voice of the casual fan who will tell me whether I'm just being overreactive or that shit's even dumber than you give it credit for. So we'll have her on. We'll have some other guests on here in the next few days. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. I need to get out of here. Peace and chicken grease.